Yes, my people. It's your boy Beej,
It's your boy Seb.
and welcome to another episode of Blocks to Bag. This week, we're going to be talking everything tech, recruitment, live podcasting,
Creators.
building community. Seb, before we get into the episode, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. Little swim, little steam, little sauna. What can I say? It's a beautiful day today, and we've got an amazing guest actually. So I'm excited for this one.
And he happens to be from your neck of the woods, huh?
Shout out East Africa. What's good?
I'm not East African. No,
you not?
I am.
I was like, yeah, I was like,
How dare you assume?
Did you see my eyes? Just go,
You said, "How you not?" Nah, joking. Yeah, I'm Michael, CEO of POCIT, and one half of the Techish Podcast. I run a tech and diversity platform called POCIT, and it's the go-to place for POC to kind of level up in their tech career. And I'm happy to be on Blocks to Bag. Is it bag or bags?
Bags.
Bags, okay.
Because we're trying to encourage people to get
More than one
multiple
bag,
bags, innit?
yeah,
Multiple
yeah,
bags.
okay.
That's what we're
I'm
about.
here for it. I love the name.
So on this podcast, we like kind of delving into people's stories, but also giving people interesting practical things they can take away, having debates and conversations around things that are coming, not just things that have been. Because I think sometimes when people hear someone's story, they want to recreate it, whereas those that have that story are working on the next thing. So before the show, we sat down, we were talking about how your business was impacted quite positively from the disproportionate effects of executives wanting to pay black organizations finally.
Yes.
Off the back of George Floyd, off the back of marches that were all happening in 2020.
Yeah.
Just for those that are not in know, like, tell us about some of the scale that's happened at your business in the last 2-3 years, just to paint a picture of what you do day to day now.
So to paint the picture, I went from being a solo bootstrap founder with no employees to a team of 7, basically, all full-time, all healthily paid. And so that's how we scaled up that quickly in that kind of 2-year period. It's a roller coaster, obviously, being an entrepreneur, because obviously COVID hit. So the first thing that goes when everyone gets shook is recruitment, and recruitment is one of our main revenue sources. So I was like, rah, what's going on? I might have to shut this business down. Like, the monetization is very well low. But then 2-2 is basically with the whole situation with George Floyd, rest in peace, and the whole kind of sway that corporations were kind of doing towards trying to invest in like diversifying recruitment and a lot of that rhetoric, we just boomed, obviously. And that continued for about 2 years. Now, obviously, things have scaled back a little bit. Like, a lot of promises weren't really kept, and the conversations are over a different tone, but we're still profitable, and we're still at still ticking away nicely. But I'm definitely looking for like new business models, and I mentioned off mic potentially a few different ideas that I've got in terms of how to basically make this community work, basically.
100%. And one thing we love diving into is like business models and
Yeah.
like showing people that, all right, cool, you see the entrepreneur, but here are like the processes, and here are like the wins and the losses and the pros and cons. So could you talk a bit more about like your business model, especially how that was before, how you're looking at it going into the kind of future, and like whether there's a difference as well, and how you categorize POCIT versus like Techish, your podcast?
Yeah. So business model is interesting. So when we started it as like just a blog, and then we launched a newsletter. And basically what I decided to do was put a bunch of jobs in our newsletter and kind of fake it till you make it. We kind of presented as if people had paid us for those slots when they clearly haven't. But so then we said, click a link if you want to kind of have your job posted, basically. And someone said, yeah, how much? We said $100. And we were like, okay, we're good to go. I had done like an e-commerce business, and it was really tough. So the fact that somebody paid me $100 just for like a bit of text on a newsletter, I was like, okay, I'm going all in on this business. So then we scaled up as a job board, and initially it went to like $200 per job post. Then we started getting companies who wanted to recruit at scale. So we started offering enterprise packages. Started off at like 2K, 5K, slowly ramped up 10K, and now you can go up to like 30, 40, 50K if you really want to kind of go all in working with us. So that's kind of the business model on the recruitment side. We also have media services where if you want to sponsor our newsletter, sponsor our podcast, sponsor our website, and have sponsored content, we have that too as well, basically. So it's mainly recruitment, but also media services, which is kind of comprising a bigger part of the pie.
Okay, and like, how hard was it to kind of like drive sales? Because I guess that you're trying to reach out to the companies at first, but does there come a point where you're just like flooded with like inbound sort of deals and people coming towards you? Or has it always been like a bit of a hustle in terms of like sales and making sure you have a pipeline of companies ready to post on your sort of platform and maybe like post on your newsletter and that?
You know what? probably operated mainly off inbound, I'll be honest with you. So we have a blog and a website and a newsletter, which generates a significant amount of interest. It acts as like lead gen, and people come from there and they kind of find us and say, oh, you've got these services, can we kind of work with you? So outbound, we've actually struggled to make it work. Like, I don't know if I'm just incompetent as a CEO, but like most people, for the level of investment, for us to do outbound, let's say we want to get JP Morgan as a client, like they need to be warm. We can't just go to them and be like, hey, do you guys want to spend 30 G's on this platform you've never heard of? So what we ideally do is maybe we might feature a JP Morgan employee on the blog. And then all of a sudden it's getting passed around. Oh, what's this website? Whatever. So that's how you kind of you can kind of make them inbound you, even though it's technically outbound and you've targeted them. So just cold calling and be like, yo, do you want to spend 20 bags on our website? You've never heard of us. That's not really going to run, basically. So you got to be smart about it.
Yeah. Love that. What would you say are things you know now that you wish you knew then?
Oh, that's a difficult question. On a hiring front, so much. So, initially I would just like base things on interviews and just be like, oh, you interviewed very well. You went to this school. I'm definitely going to hire you. And I would get shocked when they would perform not to the standard that I expected. So generally speaking now, I'm hiring people, I set them project-based work that's paid. So I know a lot of creatives might, you're applying to work at Adidas and they're going to say, yeah, do this project. And then I've had friends who have done projects with those companies and then all of a sudden they're seeing their work, unpaid work being implemented basically. So I never want to do that. So if you come to me and you want to work for me as a writer, you're going to get paid $200, $300. And if the work isn't good enough to post, I'm not going to hire you basically. So things like that. Also just trust your gut. It's such a damn cliche, but like a lot of times, I was like, I knew this business could work, but people around me were saying, I don't see basically I was working at a startup before I went to do this full time. And my boss told me, I don't think this is going to work. Nobody cares about like this sort of stuff and no one's going to want to hire based on this sort of stuff.
Really?
And
your boss was
he was hating.
He was really hating like that.
I genuinely think that was his best opinion that he had. I don't think he was looking out for me, I think, anyway. Maybe that's just my positive interpretation. But I trusted my gut and I went for it. I think those two, like when you're hiring, filter out the time wasters and the people that are not serious by setting them project-based work and just judge it on work, not what uni they went to, not anything superfluous.
That's awesome. And you said you were kind of like a solo founder and you were working in like a startup before. Like, at what point did you say, cool, I want to leave the startup world working for someone else and I'm going to pursue my own sort of like project?
Yeah, so I was only ever at a startup for like 8 months. So I was a terrible employee. I didn't even do a year. But I was having a conversation with a friend who's also an entrepreneur. And I told him, you know what? I'm going to stay for a year so that my CV looks good. And he kind of said to me, he's like, bro, you told me that you want to be an entrepreneur. Why are you talking about your CV for? And I realized then that I basically was kind of in denial. Like I was afraid to kind of launch. So as soon as I had that convo, I was like, yeah, time for me to go. Handed in my resignation and I made that dive basically.
Yeah, that makes sense. So people call it a tech website has got so many different things someone can kind of tap into, which is great. What have you built your site on and has it changed? Because there's a lot of founders out there who, there's a lot of pressure when you're trying to build a business around, oh my God, let me register the business. Let me, build a tech platform. Let me, have a shop. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it works really well for those who have done the detail and do the work, and sometimes for others it can be a bit procrastination because they're just wasting 6 months of making no revenue. Obviously your thing's working, but just take us through the evolution of your tech stack.
It's going to be a boring convo because I haven't changed the stack once since I've launched. So we've been on WordPress from day one.
There might be a reason for it.
Yeah. So the reason is that, the tools are overrated. It's not about the tools. It's about what is that tool trying to achieve, basically. So we launched on WordPress for the blog part of it. Still on WordPress to this day. The job board, which I coded myself, is in the languages and frameworks that I learned while I was at that startup. So React, JavaScript, Node.js. And I built it using those tools and it still operates in those tools. I think the best inspiration is Peter Levels, the guy behind Nomad List and all the various AI tools. He triggers developers hard because he's always like, I just use PHP. If you know about developing tools and programming languages, that's the most basic, unsexy language you could possibly use. And he's like, it doesn't make a difference. I'm generating 2-3 mil a year with these bog standard tools. It's not about the tools. It's about what problem are you trying to solve. Like you said, it's basically proactive procrastination, I call it. Where you feel like you're doing work, you're running on a treadmill, but you're not getting anywhere. If you're not solving a problem for someone and they're not giving you money, as far as I'm concerned, it's a hobby. You're not doing much.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. Yeah.
Yeah. Facts. Would you say when you started it was a hobby, and when did it become a business, or has it what's the transition for you from a side hustle to a main hustle, or hobby to okay, this is work now?
Yeah, so I was working on a different startup idea. This is when like Uber for X was hot. Everyone was trying to do an Uber vertical, whatever. And then Pocket became my business as soon as someone gave me money. I was like, okay, like I said before earlier, $100 just for a little text on my newsletter. Okay, yeah, this is where the money's at. Let's go all in basically. And I dropped the Uber for X, whatever. I think I was working on software for barbers, which I think every young black developer tries to work on, and it doesn't really work. Like because everyone goes to the barbershop, it's like this is a terrible experience. There must be a way to make it better, but I just don't think there is a solution. But that's a separate conversation. So then I went and basically just doubled down on where the money was at. I just followed the money basically.
I hear that. And you talked about you kind of always, I don't know, did you always know you wanted to be an entrepreneur, or like, was there stuff that you did within like your childhood, like, you know, the classic example of selling crisps or chocolates and sweets on the kind of playground? Like, did you have any indicators or signs that you kind of wanted to go into entrepreneurship, or was it something that you stumbled into, or you kind of saw the opportunity and as BJ was saying, you started something as for passion and then became a side hustle and you realize, okay, there's money to be made in this?
Yeah, so from 16, 17, I was like, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. As soon as I had my first retail job, I was like, this ain't for me, bro. Getting told like what to do, where to be, where to stand, how to talk. I said, I need some freedom in my life, innit? And slowly I just became engulfed in like entrepreneurship, just reading and taking in content and whatever. And so Pocket wasn't my first business. I had an e-commerce business straight after uni.
Yep.
That basically flopped. But it was a learning experience. I had to like take all the stock and go to a market store, try and shift it. Do you know what I mean? Because we had so much superfluous stock that we just couldn't get rid of. So that was fun. Mum was concerned. She was like, you went all the way to uni to become a market store trader. But I was like, listen, man, I got to sell this stock. Do you know what I mean? So that didn't work out. And I went back to the drawing board and I started to learn to code.
Okay.
Because I realized, I was like, listen, I'm never going to have the capital to launch a shop or to launch whatever, a physical existing business. But basically, if I can build it myself, there's no cost, basically. So I picked up a like CSS HTML for dummies and I haven't looked back since.
I love that. And one point that you kind of make when I hear you in your content is you bootstrapped your business. You didn't take any outside investment, no big VC checks or anything like that. So I want you to talk about building sweat equity, teaching yourself, because it seems like you equip yourself with the tools to go and build your own sort of product and business. So like what are your feelings towards like building on your own? Like between me and BJ, for example, I love doing DIY. We were talking about this the other day, right? I love doing DIY. Like, how can we bring these two different tech stacks together and put it into one product? But yeah, talk to me about that.
Yeah, so I'm not a big fan of the VC model, I'll be honest with you. I know you work at a VC firm, so no shade, but like I personally, it just smelled too much like having a boss. Like I got to report to this guy and show them updates. I said, bro, I came into this for freedom. I didn't come to report to no one. And not as if there isn't benefit to having that structure. There is. I just didn't like that part, one. Two, I don't like the incentive. So to a VC, you are one of many investments. So to them, they could have 100 investments. They could all be 1,000 to 1 odds that one is going to work. But to them, that's great. But to you, this is your one business, basically. And doing the VC model, you need to basically exit or go public. And the likelihood of that happening is very, 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 very low. It's all or nothing to me in that situation. So as an individual entrepreneur, I'd rather go the safe route and build a business that's going to be profitable and pay me from the jump and that I can support my people with straight away. Not, this is going to exit and we're going to be Facebook. The likelihood of that happening is so low. And I was speaking to these two young girls yesterday at this event and they were asking me like, oh, we want to raise money. And I was like, one, okay, this is what you're getting into. Maybe you can get angel investors, that's cool. But if you're going to go to VCs, are you willing to like work on this for 10 years with very little income and basically exit or go public? If you're not willing to do that, then don't do this. If you want to keep the business in your name and pass it down to your kids, then don't do this basically. But yeah, there's
there's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, if you want to do that, that's good.
For some people.
Yeah, but how many people has it worked for our kind of background? I'm gonna keep it real. Let's keep it real because they're not
slim margin.
It's slim. One, they don't invest in us. One,
it's growing, but more importantly, I think the thing that's resonating what you're saying to me is like, know why you exist in business.
Yeah.
Because also it's like there's life is long, right?
Yeah.
So you can do something for 5 years, try it, and it might just work for you. But also detour. Like I had a business that was invested by VC 2014. I was 19. And when numbers were hard, we felt like we were one of 100 options. I was like, nah, I'm going to go back to being independent, like fully independent, only work at Angels or self-fund it ourselves. So do a project, if I put the money back in.
Yeah.
But I've got different friends who are, they're blowing in different ways and got that VC pack in, and then there's a merger. Even if they don't IPO, the merger is an option as well, where a competitor or someone in a similar space that wants to consolidate will come in. But how have you over time like changed or kept in line with what you want to do? Because it sounds like there's been a few different things that you've wanted to do from the Uber and X, the 16-year-old entrepreneur, the guy now who's in the mid-30s. There's a variation, right?
Yes, I've always taken it year by year. So there was never any real macro plan. It was always like, is things working this year? What can we achieve next year? Basically at January when I'm assessing things. So things change slowly. Like I mentioned off mic that there's a few different products that we're going to launch, hopefully. But that all happened about when I just assessed what is the current macro environment, basically. I never sit there with 10-year plans. I think it's hubris. You can't, as an entrepreneur, plan it. I couldn't have predicted COVID. I couldn't have predicted, this whole George Floyd situation. I couldn't have predicted even the kind of mini recession that we're in right now. But there's a lot of people out of business or about to go out of business. Like I'm having those talks in the group chats and people are like, yo, it's time to wrap up. And these are the people getting the awards and the press and you're thinking this is the guy, like, you know what I mean? So you can't predict this ish. And obviously I back the founder, not the business. They're going to go on and do other amazing things. But you just can't predict the situation you're going to find yourself in. So I always just plan it on a 6-month basis, yearly.
Love that. Should we do a round on your quick fire questions?
Yeah, let's go into it.
Let's do it.
I feel in those gems that were shared there, for anyone that's listening, there's like a lot of applicable things there that one can take when it comes to thinking about approaching my business, when it comes to thinking about how I should actually set up my tech. Please, guys, let's stop doing 6 months of procrastinating.
Oh my God.
Like,
so
get to market quickly.
Get to it.
Put up a landing page and start calling people. Say, will you give me money? And if they're saying no, then reconsider it. Do you know what I mean?
Before we move on now, actually, let's do this and then we can reconvene. Cool. So we've got a couple quick fire questions for you today.
Let's go. Ready?
Cool. So what is your favorite tech company and why?
Favorite tech company?
Lord, gotta choose one.
It's obviously my own company, and I got Red Pocket. But besides Pocket and besides Abadesi's company, Hustle Crew, who's my Techish co-host, maybe right now I would say Notion. It's a product that I use a lot, so I can't deny the work that they're doing. Let me just say Notion for now. Nice boring answer.
Awesome. This might even relate to the first question. What's your number one productivity hack right now?
Number one productivity hack is old school. Sunday, when you're not firefighting Monday to Friday, plan out your week and structure your time then before you get to Monday. Because when I get on Monday, my team's asking me questions on Slack. I've got meetings. I don't have no time for like real visionary thinking. Like, what am I trying to achieve? So Sunday, pen and pad, not with your laptop. That's my old school hack, basically.
I love that. Cool. You have to choose one or the other for the rest of your life. If you had to be either a founder or an investor, which one would you choose?
When you're young, founder. When you're old, investor. That's what I gotta say. Because it's easy to be like just a mentor from the side when you're old. But when you're young, founder.
I love that. What is your number one advice for people trying to get into tech within the next year?
As a job?
Yes, careers.
Know what is your skill set and temperament. If you're a good talker, just get into tech sales. It's quite lucrative and it's a lot easier than trying to become a coder. If you're somebody who likes to spend lots of time just analyzing and like being in front of a screen and not being disturbed and not have to speak to people, maybe you might want to learn to code. Also, if what you're doing at your current role can be done at a tech company, make that move. So HR, we need that in tech companies. Marketing, to a certain extent, we need, there's a lot of crossover there too. So there's many ways.
Cool. Outside of Techish and Blocks to Bags, what is your favorite podcast?
Oh man. So I think the one I've listened to the most is probably historically is Brilliant Idiots. I've been listening to that for about 7-8 years basically. And besides that, let me give like a career focused one. I would say, I listened to Recode. Scott Galloway and Kara Swisher. Even though they came after us and people are like, Techish is like a diverse Recode. I'm like, we are before them. Thank you very much. So yeah.
That's mad. When I actually think about it, that's actually
we're
mad.
older than them. Anyways.
A must-read book.
Anti-Fragile by Nassim Taleb. That book is about the concept of you have something that is fragile that breaks with volatility. And then you have something that's sturdy that can withstand volatility. But anti-fragile is something that grows with volatility. And this can be applied in health, fitness, business, all sorts of stuff. And it's not really like a self-help book. It's a guide to life. So Anti-Fragile by Nassim Taleb.
Love that. And finally, as a founder, CEO, and creator, what's your daily routine like? What's life like on a
So
daily
I
routine?
use the Paul Graham Maker Manager. So half the day I'm making stuff like that gives me energy and that I can just zone in on. And then the other stuff is managing. The other half is managing basically. So Maker from like 9 to like 1, and then like from 2 onwards I do management stuff like admin and team meetings.
I love that.
Yeah.
Quick fire questions.
Nice. What a great segment. Seb, you were going to ask something before we went into that segment.
Yeah, and we kind of touched on it a bit whilst I was asking you the questions. It's the importance of sales in life. I've been having a lot of conversations with, some of my younger sort of friends and even some of like my family who are older and telling them, why did you never tell us about sales and how important it was? You told us to go to uni, get our academic degrees and qualifications, or maybe pick up some skills, but as I've progressed within the startup world in life, as a freelancer, someone who's owned an agency, someone even who's in the middle of a career right now as 9 to 5, like I saw the importance of sales, like in terms of getting your clients, getting pay rises. And like I wanted to hear your thoughts on like the importance of sales, how you taught yourself, and like what advice you have for people coming up in the game.
So you know what? Based on what you said, actually, I think the reason why sales is looked down upon to a certain extent and it wasn't recommended is because sales is like plastic surgery. You only recognize it when it's done badly. So like you will interact with, double glazing guys and, people trying to sell things that you don't want. Well, but when sales is done well, you don't even recognize it as sales. There's someone here, you come to them with a problem, they're showing you solutions, potential ideas, and if you want it, it's yours basically, right, for a fee. That's great sales at its peak. You don't even realize you're being sold to, basically. So I think that's why, as a career, it's always been kind of looked down upon because bad sales people basically ruin it for everyone. But yeah, so like I know people who went from working in charities, on a salary they probably weren't happy with, just doing like fundraising, and then they got in as an account exec at a sales company. Now they're on 6 figures, they've gone clear. Do you know what I'm saying? And they bought their house, they bought their council estate, went home, and they've changed their family's financial future because they had the gift of the gab. They could talk. Do you know what I mean? And the thing about tech sales as well is that like very often you're not selling crap to people who don't want it. People want those services. They need the tool. Do you know what I'm saying? If you're at a company where you're selling things that people don't want, get out of it. But more times than not, you're dealing with there's some inbound and they just get on the call, just, discuss their problem and like guide them through their solution. I got friends that work at AWS. I'm like, you sell it like,
everyone needs cloud.
Everyone needs cloud computing. Yeah. Like it's hot and it's money there for the taking, like kind of thing. So, and also I think it's close as you can get to being an entrepreneur without being an entrepreneur. So when you are not an entrepreneur, very often you feel like, why should I try to work hard? Because like I don't get rewarded for my efforts. However hard I work, and maybe I might get a promotion, but with sales, if you have ingenuity, drive, determination, what you bring in, you eat. You know what I'm saying? So that's why it's probably good.
I love that. I think we've talked a nice amount about your POCIT business. You're also the co-host of a very, very popular podcast called Techish. It's something that I've listened to. It's got me through some tough times working in tech by myself, like being a freelancer in prayer and like not having no one there. It's always nice to have voices from a sort of similar background, like kind of talking to you and letting you know that, okay, cool, I'm not just alone in this kind of game, or I'm not just the only one interested in like a certain thing, like products, tech, innovation, that kind of thing. So talk to us about Techish. How long have you been doing Techish? Tell us about like the founding story as well.
So Techish is a tech and pop culture podcast. So we'll talk about everything from crypto, ChatGPT to Cardi B all in one episode. So you kind of get like your medicine and your sugar at the same time. It's co-hosted by myself and Abadesi, who is British, American, Nigerian, Filipino entrepreneur in her own right. Let me get that all out. So yeah, we talk about the trials and tribulations of being an entrepreneur, tech trends, what's going on in the industry, as well as our own personal stories, as well as what's going on in pop culture, basically. We've been doing it for like 4 or 5 years. We recently joined the HubSpot podcast network. We recently broke into the top 10 tech podcast charts in the UK. And we've had a brief cameo there in the US, but that's a lot harder because it's a bigger market. And yeah, we've been going for like 5 years strong, and we've got a live show coming up October 25th in London. I got like a discount code for the Blocks to Bags listeners, which hopefully can be in the show notes. And yeah, that's the hustle, Techish hustle.
Love that. And with the Techish Pod, what's the approach that you guys take now in year 5 versus in year 1?
Year 1 was very much like, it was just enjoyment in the sense of let's just go have some fun. Year 5, it basically has become more of a business, and we've had to optimize around audience feedback. So initially we were like, oh, let's just talk for an hour and a half and like just go on and on and on. And then basically we realized that actually our audience likes us, the fact that we give you a nice little tight half an hour episode. There's a certain mix and blend that they like. So it's been more optimized, and it's been less just two friends talking like for like ages, basically. That's the main difference, I would say.
I love that. And you mentioned earlier that YouTube is obviously the place that people are watching, listening to their podcasts. When you think of the next 5 years of Techish, even if you're not going to plan the big 10 years, but what are some of the things that excite you now about creating?
So I think just in general, I think content creators launching businesses off the back of their content, basically. So I think Mr. Beast is the greatest example of that. And Ali Abdul as well. So going from just providing content and trying to monetize that content, but to also like, we've got this audience, what can we provide to this audience, basically? I saw this on My First Million. The best example is there's this woman who basically does YouTube videos where she just like does like she uses like notebooks and does like bullet journaling. And then she basically made her own notepad, basically, or notebook, as the perfect example of like, how do you monetize in a way that feels authentic to your audience? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's probably what excites me over the next 5 years, that podcasters can become, viable businesses outside of just doing an ad read for like Manscaped or something like that.
I love that. And when we're kind of talking about your audience and your kind of community, you said that a lot of them were based in the US as well. So talk to me about that, because we weren't complaining, but we're talking about like the UK versus US comparison, how like media is like such a big thing there, and we sometimes tend to like think that the UK is a couple of steps behind. Like,
it definitely is, though. It definitely is. Having a US audience is great. Obviously, they're a lot more generous, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
So we've had like a Patreon. I think 90% of the Patreon, it was like US people. I think obviously incomes are just higher there. We don't want to acknowledge the fact that UK is a bit behind in that regard. And yeah, I think that's the main difference. US audience are a lot more willing to kind of probably invest in their kind of communities and things that they listen to.
Yeah.
And it's a bigger market, obviously, as well. So look, with the internet, it's a global connected thing. Don't just think about what we can do here in the UK. Think about how you can tap into what's going on over there, and globally, and Africa as well. We have an African audience. Like, we've charted in Uganda, Kenya.
Oh, sick.
Do you know what I mean? With the #1 podcast in the Solomon Islands at one point. I don't know. Oh, don't ask me how. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, there must be one or two people out there that are just diehard techish and told all their mates. So yeah, the world is global, and the internet is global. So make use of that.
How have you guys been distributing your podcast to get on these charts? So there's like,
so
just
obviously
like-
we leveraged our existing audiences. So
just like musicians, for example,
Yeah.
where there's a lot of people trying to be rappers, there's now a lot of people trying to be podcasters now.
So we had the benefit of starting early, obviously, when it was a bit less noisy. 2, we had the benefit of that actually there wasn't that many people talking about the things that we're capable of talking about. So both of us are actual legit entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Abadesi's very charismatic. I'm okay, you know what I'm saying? I'm learning. And we also had a mix and blend of subjects that people hadn't really been used to. So I think the problem I find with people who come up to me saying, I want to be a podcaster, is like, bro, do we need another relationship podcast? Do we need another who's got the body count? There's a space for that, but have we now reached capacity? Do you know what I mean? You very well may be that charismatic, so you're able to kind of thing, but make sure that what you're saying, there's an audience that hasn't been spoken to before.
Yeah.
I think also we leveraged our existing audiences. That definitely helped. Both of us have communities within our businesses. Obviously now social media clips is very, very powerful, very, very important.
That's true.
Reels, shorts, short form content, and not just taking clips, from the podcast, but also editing the clip so that it tells its own story. So what
100%.
we found is that we were doing clips where it was just like minute 1 to minute 3 of the podcast. But then when I took clips from minute 1, spliced in minute 5, spliced in minute 6, and it told a more of a uniform story, we were able to kind of get more traction basically.
Well, as one clip, yeah?
As one clip, yeah. Nice. So sometimes we're talking about a subject for ages, and the point Abadesi makes in minute 6 follows into a point that I made at minute 1. So then I could use like a cap cut and just cut it together, and then it has like a more of a cohesive story. Like each of these clips now has to be like a piece of content in of themselves, because it's easy just to be like, just clip it up and like, yo, whatever happened organically within this 16 seconds, let's put it out there basically.
And so it sounds like you're heavily involved in the post-production.
Definitely, yeah.
Which obviously a lot of people, just like musicians again, I love the comparison here is they'll sit down and, record 5-6 things and then just pull it out.
Yeah.
Oh, no one's listening to my thing. My friend's not supporting. Is your friend even your audience?
I like
that's a good.
Is your friend even the persona?
Yep.
So you've clarified your persona. It's a lovely extension to your businesses. You go on POCIT website, click on podcast, it takes you to Techish.
Yeah.
You go on Techish, you click on the entrepreneurs, it takes you back to the websites.
Yeah.
They're connected. But obviously you're a busy CEO now. You do half your day in tech, like actually building stuff, half your day with your team. I'm sure there's like loads of things that fly through, as I can personally relate. So when you shoot, just for anyone that wants this kind of takeaway in terms of the level they need to get to on a minimum, whether they want to copy how you move, or we can happily talk about how we process. We talk about all the time in this, but we can talk about how we do it. But what's your process? So you said you shoot once every 2 weeks, so 2 times a month.
Yeah, we record twice a month.
You'll sit down for like 90 minutes, you said, so 2 half-an-hour episodes get mashed out in the 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Do you watch it straight away the next day, or do you watch it within 7 days? And then do you find the clips, or do you take turns to finding the clips? Like, what's you guys' process from shooting to it going out?
So we have, like, I don't do any of the editing for the podcast. My team does that basically. But I've taken a much more hands-on approach with the clip generation, because that is the key for distribution. And we found that whenever we have a clip that pops, it actually does lead to downloads. Like very often, social media doesn't lead to any sales or jack shit, basically, pardon my French. But with this, it does. So I've taken on a more hands-on approach. And then eventually I will systematize it and tell people, my team, how to do it. But right now, let me get the recipe right. And then once I've got the recipe, I'll give you the cookbook and you lot can copy it. What I did in the beginning was I was like, you lot handle the clips. And I was like, that clip wasn't as good. It could have been better. And like, the reality is...
So we've gone through that process.
Yeah. The reality is like, your team won't care as much as you will. That's so true. I've got to do it. And then I've got to explain exactly what I want, basically. So, and then anyone can do it, basically. But right now, I'm still taking charge, basically.
That's mad, because we're doing that.
But taking time, as in how many hours? As a busy person.
Yeah. So it might take me like 20 minutes a day. So because we have 1 clip per day. So I'll take 20 minutes of my time. We'll use AI to get the clips generated, basically. And then once I've had a look at that, I'll just download the various clips and then basically like chop and change them, edit it, and basically I'll use a cap cut, and then I'll post it once a day, basically. The difference it makes is astonishing. So when my team was doing it versus me doing it now, each clip gets at least like 15-20k views, basically.
Mate, I've seen that.
Mad. Like, okay, all right, we're having this convo right now. We're literally having this convo right now.
Or I post on the feed, I do my collaboration. I look at the time I'm posting. It always bangs more than when the team do it.
Yeah.
Because, as what you said, it's the care.
Yeah.
And it's also like the lens, like your storytelling lens, because you've been creating content for so long, you've got a good eye on finding hooks.
Yeah.
Because you're making it because you want to consume it. Yeah. And you speak to a persona that you're obviously creating content for.
100%.
It's interesting.
100%. And that's the other thing, actually. I would say collaboration posts is like the next thing. So I built POCIT on Twitter originally, and the way we grew was basically jumping off people's audiences. So we would tag them in a written article about you, for example, let's say. We'll tag you, you'd retweet it to your audience. Instagram never really had that mechanism. You could reshare a story, theoretically,
but it's not
but now with
really,
collaboration posts, it's the next growth hack, basically, for the next, like, I think 6 months to a year before it gets absolutely rinsed out, or people will stop, start charging for you. Because, people will start doing that.
People are charging.
Yeah.
Big pages charge for collaboration.
No, but what I'm saying is, let's say, for example, if I was a dickhead, I'd come on this podcast and be like, I'll come on the podcast, but for the collab thing, you gotta pay, there's a fee. Do you know what I'm saying? Because my audience is, you know what I mean? So obviously I'm not doing that, but I'm saying in the future, I think it will get rinsed out to a point where that might happen. So while people are not trained to that behavior, I would definitely say, like, if you got a guest, do the collab thing. You know what I mean? So we'll post, it'll be collab between my business, Abadesi's business, me, Abadesi. So it's like 4 posts that we're doing, automatically just juices up distribution straight away. Like we've had posts, do like 1 million views, basically. So that's definitely an area of growth.
But you've been consistent on your 20 minutes a day.
Yeah, for the
Like,
last,
like
at least for the
lunchtime?
last month and a half.
Yeah, nice. But yeah, as you said, you're building a cookbook, and once it's been made,
Yep.
like we're big fans of playbooks. We like even do Loom videos
Yeah.
when we're making a new play.
Yeah.
So when someone comes, we're like, right, we'll give you the talk, but watch this back after the talk again.
Yeah.
And then it's like, if you're not getting it after, then we know you're not a good hire.
Yeah. Yeah.
'Cause
Absolutely.
we've made a video version, transcript version, and a one-on-one time.
I've gone through it with you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Sometimes there are just parts of a business that are so crucial that you just got to run with it yourself for a little while until you get it, until it's completely right. And I think, yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's a chance that no one's going to be able to do it because like you said, when you're the audience content creator, you know the audience very well because maybe you're creating content for someone like yourself. So it's very easy to kind of just do it basically. But yeah, let's see. Come back to me in a year's time. Maybe I would have found the person to take it over.
Yeah.
I think there's a massive still space for these for an agency because a lot of these people are shit. I'll be honest with you. Like if there was an agency that was really good at getting results and actually said, I will have an incentive structure where if we get over this many views for you, we will get paid extra basically. Because right now, like if you've got a hire within their team, what is their incentive to really make your clip pop? Whether they post the clip and it does well, whether they don't, they're getting paid. But if you said, yo, if this clip does this many views, we'll give you more money. That might be it. I don't know.
Yeah, that guy called Simon Squibb, what he does with his team, he gives them equity. He talks about it. So he goes, right, come make content, rather than me just paying you a big day rate, let me give you a cut of AdSense revenue.
Yeah.
And
that might be it, yeah.
And he pays them, and then over 6 months, they've seen growth on their TikTok and YouTube. So now everyone's like got a place. Not saying give them 50%, but it's that kind of approach that makes people, start thinking about IP in a different way.
Yeah.
Because that's what you're creating, IP.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think as entrepreneurs, sometimes we're a bit dumb in the sense that we don't realize that people also think like us in the sense that they're like, what's in it for me? Even though you're an entrepreneur, but I'm paying you like to do a job. But at the same time, it's like for them to go all out, the upside can't just be the base rate. Otherwise, you know what I mean? You're not going to get the best out of them.
And I think that's, we were talking about VC and stuff earlier. And I think one of the interesting things that I've taken away is like the organizational models and how they're kind of built. And I think there's a lot that creators can learn and like media companies and media organizations can learn from like that world. And like one of the key things that we've kind of taken away is like the power of being a partner. So when we're thinking about our content team, IP, which we already know IP is going to be so valuable, not just now, but in the future. When they're making shows based off your show. Do you know what I'm saying? Like we see a lot of reruns and things like that happening. If you own your content and you're a partner in your kind of content, that means that you're going to be able to generate that sort of wealth in the future. So one of the things that we like to say, and one of the things that we like to do is to bring people on as partners. Let's develop, co-create and co-produce this show together with you. And I think that's something that not a lot of creators or media companies have really thought about in today's age because IP and media has become so valuable. We've seen it over the last couple of years. Like people's catalogs are being bought. Music catalogs, for example, are being. Justin Bieber recently sold his music catalog. Lil Wayne sold his music catalog.
Future.
The
guys that own the label, folks like CMG, like Bear People. But also, it's like even on IP Flay, just looking at the UK market, for example, Gasworks. It was in Boiler Room. Alhan said, I'm going to buy the trademark off you guys.
So they created that originally under a company that was
under Boiler Room, yeah.
Okay, and the company shut it down basically, didn't they?
No, the company's still alive, but Boiler Room.
They shut down Boiler Room basically.
No, Boiler Room's still alive, but
Gasworks.
The Gasworks show. They wasn't making enough revenue for them.
Damn.
But Alhan and Poet were like, no, this is our IP. Like, we want it. And they're like, well, we own it. So then you get into a battle over, well, you're contracting and I'm paying you for service, so we own it. But yeah, IP is important.
100%. Yeah, it is. It is.
I love that. And when we're talking about IP and being a creator and talking about your event as well, is like, what are some of the real life things that you think people could be doing? So your event is coming up, but a lot of times we hear that, they've got 1 million followers on TikTok or they've got X amount of followers on this platform. But when they do a pop-up event or they try to do something in real life,
it's not happening.
It's not happening. No one's turning up. Like, so I want to talk about like engaging a community in real life, like, because you guys got people that will ride for you, isn't it? So yeah, talk to us about.
I think the format is what matters.
Yeah.
So there was that famous story of that TikToker. I think her name was, I can't remember, but she was something like Africa Brooks. Something I could have got
Yeah.
that wrong, but she did she went to like a conference called VidCon, and like nobody turned up. This girl's got like 1 million followers on TikTok. So sometimes the platform that you're using you're thinking those numbers are real. They ain't real. No one's really checking for you. You're just there to entertain for a few seconds, but no one's really riding for you. Whereas on a podcast, you're listening to us for half an hour every week. We're basically your homie at this point. So sometimes actually you have to be honest about what kind of audience you have. I'll be honest with you. Like if you're just posting pictures on the gram, is that really enough for someone to want to come down and see you and spend money, their hard-earned dough, or buy your merch? So we have an advantage there. You know, the audience is not Mr. Beast level, but people are really listening to us. And we look at the completion rates as well. So we're like, okay, like 80% of people are watching this, are listening to this whole thing. I think we're good enough and confident enough to like get those people to come into a room and give us money, basically.
What are ways in 2023, going into 2024, that one can increase their audience listenership for an audio podcast?
So I think that's the question. Audio podcast is not what it's going to do.
Because we spoke a lot about video.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think
that's quite bullish. Man saying bun audio, basically.
I'm not saying bun audio.
Have it as a...
Have it, yes. But the reality is people are not... that audience is too small now. You really
Unless
need
you're Joe Rogan
visuals.
and them, man.
Yeah, but even Joe Rogan grew primarily on YouTube. Yeah. Joe Rogan grew on YouTube. Like, he would have been a massive podcaster anyway, but his YouTube channel, to me, I think he made the biggest tactical error. I mean, the Spotify bag was mad, but I never would have said, I'm taking down my YouTube. Yeah, because I think he would have been...
100 M's plus 200 M's. That's a...
It's a lot, but if you actually probably worked out how much money he was making by himself, it was also crazy money. He gives that impression of like, I'm the everyman, but he probably was making, millions a year anyway. So I think to grow just as an audio podcast is very difficult. Unless you're doing something super duper unique that like people have to go to, like it's very difficult. You need the visual component now. There's still a land grab to a certain extent. You've got to look like, where are the land grabs? Like where's the open fresh territory? You know what I'm saying? So I still think with shorts and reels and TikToks, there's still growth there for the next 18 months.
So right now, your top 3 tips for podcasters.
Yeah, get your visuals right. Make sure you're distributing well on all the short form channels. Obviously, do the basics well. Audio on point, visuals on point, but audio is crisp. And then I think even just professionalize, because there's so many ways of monetizing now. You can monetize with insertions. I know guys who have got like, they're getting like 5-6K downloads an episode, and they're still not willing to monetize because they're just too cool for it. Oh, I don't want to have this. I'm like, bro, you've got to start making it sustainable, because you're going to burn out. You're not going to want to carry on. So don't be afraid to monetize, and monetize early to a certain extent. I think those are the main ones, I think.
And then your top 3 tips for employers who are looking to hire diverse talent right now.
Obviously, pocketjobs.com. Come to Pocket. You know what I'm saying?
Like, what should be their 3 criteria that they should be thinking about? Because there's so many things that they have to think about, right?
Yes, that's very interesting. So I think from the UK perspective, what unis are you recruiting from? So a lot of employers won't recruit unless you're from
Russell Group. Yeah,
Russell Group, or even like within the Russell Group, just Oxford, Cambridge, etc., etc. So automatically, if you're not going to universities that have a more diverse population, you're going to screw, yourself on those stats. Obviously, invest in platforms, not just Pocket. Obviously, there's BYP, for example, in the UK. So there's lots of different platforms that can actually directly get you to talent. And then I think those 2, I'd say. Third one is difficult because it's a bit controversial, so I'll stick with those 2 for now.
Okay. You talked about your newsletter as well earlier on, and a newsletter, whenever we speak to our audience, we're like, that's like the first party data. That's like so valuable. Like,
yes.
What are your top 3 tips for growing and maintaining an engaged newsletter?
So growing a newsletter, you've got to be able to reel them in with something. So we have like articles that reels people in, then we have a pop-up. So if you've got a website, don't be afraid to have a pop-up. I know so many like precious artistic type dudes do not want pop-ups on their website, but that's one of the easiest ways to capture, and it actually does work. I think obviously the content has to be good.
Yeah.
You also don't be afraid to actually cull your newsletter. So if you've got like a bunch of people who are not opening it, like it's better to have a smaller list that's got a dedicated audience than to have a larger list that's going to fuck up your open rates, basically, or we're going to put you in spam. You know what I mean? And obviously the vanity metrics can be such that you really want a bigger number, and you're not necessarily going to want to do that, but that actually can help. It's the same principle for everything. What are you doing that nobody else is? And I think that's the common thread. Like, what are you doing that nobody else can't or was not willing to do? And that's what's gonna grow your business product, whatever you're doing. Like I think that's what everyone is trying to run away from. Like I want to growth hacks.
Yeah.
I want to sell my shit product. How can I growth hack this into the moon? It's like, okay, but can we work on making sure that this is a unique and valuable proposition that when I open my inbox, it's worth my time, and not that you somehow manage to growth hack your way into my inbox. Do you know what I mean? That's the long-term sustainable play.
Which goes down to the basics. Can we do like a funny, quick 3 questions on X?
Oh my God. Hit me on.
Cool. Podcasters, there's a lot of podcasters coming into the scene. What are your icks?
Business icks, you
yeah.
Business icks. Oh Lord, have mercy. Oy, business icks. Oh man, you put me on the spot here. I think there's always that type of person who basically has gone from like achieving academically, and they want to go straight into that pipeline of the VC model because it feels like school.
Yeah.
It feels like I can pass the exam. Will the VC approve? I'm going to pitch. They give me funding, and like they don't actually have any like real entrepreneurial grit. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm not trying to sound arrogant, but have you been on a market stall selling? Have you been like, you know what I'm saying? Can you sell to people, or are you here because you feel like I went to Stanford, now it's time for me to go to YC, or I went to Oxford, now it's time for me to pitch, you know, the fancy London VCs basically. So that is one of my business icks. Second one is, I think it's around people. Okay, this is a controversial one. So in the UK, in the UK, as compared to America, in America, if you win a business award, it usually means that you're making millions. In the UK now, you have men that are making 5K annual revenue winning business awards. And we gotta get serious. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I'm not mad at it. I understand why we're trying to like encourage people to like, you know, aspire and whatever.
Yep.
But like, we've got to be honest with what's really happening right now. Do you know what I'm saying, innit? And so there's an industry of like promoting and clout to do with business that isn't tangible. Like we're not really making money out here. Do you know what I mean? So that is another one of my business icks, I'll be honest with you.
Gunshots for them, gunshots for them, gunshots for them, gunshots for them, you know?
The straight face is what was killing me as well.
But yeah, listen guys, as you guys know, we could talk forever. It's been another fresh episode of Blocks to Bags. Michael, it's been a pleasure having you on.
Thank you.
We've given people a lot of stuff to take away. Where can people find you?
So they can find me on all the usual places. Michael Berhane, that's Berhane. On Twitter, Instagram, they can find my companies POC and Tech, POCIN Tech, and they can find Techish on all good podcast apps. Thank you for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
And there's a discount code for the live show, which I'll send you guys so you can distribute to your audience if you so wish.
As always, guys, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Tap in or tap out. Bow, bow, bow.